This episode, my friends, is one of the most exciting ones that I've done to date. Harvey Korman, one of the great comedians that ever graced the small and big screen, one of the unsung heroes of Hollywood. His son Christopher is joining me today to celebrate life, to celebrate his dad, and to talk about the genius that he brought to Hollywood. This man is was not just a great actor and a legendary comedian, but he was also a great father. And Chris is going to tell us all the details about what a compassionate father he was, what a funny man he was, and all the amazing people that walked in and out that Chris got to witness and get to know in the legendary days of Hollywood. Let us bring on Christopher Korman to the Alarmists.
Hey, Jesse, finally.
Finally. Hey. All right. It's nice to meet you, my friend.
Finally, we've been corresponding on Facebook for so long. I feel like we've known each other for so long.
Facebook is actually good for something, right?
It is. Not my hairline.
No, not mine either.
But I'll tell you, the genesis of writing the book, oh my God, it's Harvey Korman's son.
Really. Can you believe that title? Oh my God, it's Harvey Korman's son. That is a great title.
I was going to name it A Man of 1,000 Sketches.
Yeah, I think the first title, the one you chose, is the right title. I think that's great.
I mean, I could have gone 20 different ways. I was going to do if you were the son of Gazoo and Mother Marcus, you'd be in therapy too.
Okay, dum dum.
Right, dum dums. Yeah, those are some legacies I have to live down. But
I'll tell you, your dad was truly an amazing person in the sense that I got to learn about a side of Harvey by reading your book that I never knew existed. You only see a sort of a one-dimensional character on TV and in movies, but what you gave us was a look inside to the real man, to the person. And I love the things that I saw about him. I mean, how many Hollywood stars do you read about? They were never there for the kids. They were never there to bring them up. How many fractured souls did they leave behind? And here I'm reading about this passion book that you've written about your life with your dad, and that he really put fatherhood before his career. You'd never know it because he's left a legacy of incredible material, incredible performances. But coming from your mouth to the reader's ears, I love the fact that you embrace him like that. Tell us a little bit about that relationship.
I would say from early on, his life credo to me is very simple. I can accept that you have a learning disability. I can accept that you have challenges. What I will not tolerate is you not trying because you might look lesser in my eyes.
Now the viewers don't know about. Now I'm gonna set them straight. Christopher is an unsung hero because this is a person that's sitting here next to me today who has gone through the mill to become a normal, how we put quotes around the word normal, right. Normal individual. You would never know the things I'm about to tell you that he went through. Okay. He had a disability, and correct me, Chris, because I'm doing this from my little notes here. You delayed the process of retaining information. Is that correct?
Correct.
All right. You had hyaline membrane disease where you got no oxygen, correct?
You pronounced that well, too.
I'm a writer. Have I told you?
Hey.
You get no oxygen. I'm getting plenty right now, as you can tell. I won't shut up. You were cross-eyed.
Yes.
Which I am now, and you fixed that. And then you had corrective surgery on your jaw at age 14?
Yes, it was the happiest moment of my family's life.
Oh, my God.
They didn't have to hear from me for a month.
Oh, my. Now, what I love about all this and all the things that I read about in your book is what your father said to you when you knew that you were different. You knew you had an uphill battle, and he said to you, there's nothing wrong with you being different. It's who you are. Those 4 words are the most important words a father could tell a son ever.
his whole thing was, I, I mean, remember the people we had in our house: Carol Burnett, Edie Gourmet, Steve Lawrence, coming downstairs. I had an older sister, Maria. Come downstairs with the guests, 15, 20 minutes, say hi, whatever. My mother and father easily could have put me in the closet and said, "You're the black, you know, you're the black sheep of the family." It was no, come down. We're going to celebrate you for who you are. We're not going to treat it as a blight. We're going to celebrate you and all your glory and everything about you. And people will have to accept you on the merits. If they don't, well, then they're not part of our life. And that's how both my father and my mother treated the situation. And from then on, I understand if you what's the word I'm looking for? If you impart to your child, it's okay to be different. He takes that with him, and he uses it as a mantra in his life and say, okay, I can fail, but more importantly, my dad said, okay, I'm not saying you can fail and then rest on your laurels. I'm saying you can fail and make mistakes, but learn from your mistakes, grow and evolve from those mistakes, and evolve from that. Because you don't know what's possible if you give up. If you give up on yourself, what do you know what's possible for yourself?
I think that is an incredible life lesson he gave you.
He was.
Whether you come from a famous dad or just a common person, I think that is an extraordinary piece of parenting that Harvey did for you.
There's a caveat to this. When he told me that, he was standing in front of me dressed like a chicken. So I don't know what credibility he had at that moment. But
it's very hard to look at your father dressed as a chicken and talk to him seriously. But Dad,
or the Avon lady, here's something about most people, unless I wrote it in the book. If you look at the character Mother Marcus, the big Jewish lady he played on the Burnett show, that is, if there's anything I could say is true about my father, performing for him was in many ways a cathartic purge, because basically, in essence, Mother Marcus was his mother. It was
really? He modeled her after his own mom.
The essence of the way he held his hand.
The classic breast frame.
Yes. Now the
breast frame. I won't get the Me Too movement won't come after me.
Well,
that was pretty good. I just made that up, by the way.
Well, I mean, the breast and the hair it was certainly affectation, but the essence of how he walked as her, the way he held his hands, the dialect was so her. Now I think he's doing a little Ethel Merman. Right. He's doing a little Lady Kazan from My Favorite Year.
Yep.
The typical Jewish,
too much lipstick.
Right. Yeah, it's like
you look at her and you go, if she kisses me, I'm a dead man.
God, if she hugs me, I'm dead. I mean, you think Dolly Parton smothering you?
Great eye contact. No, when you see that kind of I mean, those sketches, when he did those characters, this is not just a laugh. This is a comedic change of life. To see that kind of genius in front of your eyes, you walk away euphoric because you've just spent the last 15 minutes laughing your ass off.
Well, here's one thing that my father would want people to know. Because of his classical training at Goodman Theater, he studied with Uta Hagen. He studied at the HB Studios. My father had so much classical training, he had an existential crisis just saying good morning. I mean, he could do 20 minutes.
He couldn't walk in. He would be like, hey, good morning, Christopher.
Yeah, he could do 20 minutes at the icebox, Jesse. But he always approached comedy, even sketch comedy, because his rules of comedy was you don't approach comedy as a comedian. You approach it as an artist. You have to hit the high notes. It has to have conflict. It has to have a resolution. It has to have character. Even if you're doing
Hedley Lamar and the Blazing Saddles,
right.
Classic approach.
But at the moment,
I didn't say Heddy.
Right. Oh my God! Well, I mean, outside the Burnett show, I think Hedley Lamar is probably one of the most associated roles of my father's that he had. I mean, he did four Mel Brooks movies, but I think Blazing Saddles and High Anxiety, for me, the werewolf scene in High Anxiety
I just watched it yesterday just to revisit it.
The editing, Jesse, the fast movements, the way Mel cut it, because Mel can't see my dad off camera doing that with the rubber band. Ron Clark, the actor, can't react too quickly. He's got to be able to react to the snap. So anybody who says comedy is easy has never done comedy.
That's a great segue to the Carol Burnett show, because one of the great moments when you see these sketches being done is when you see Tim Conway cracking everybody up, and on camera, you don't see this anymore. You see Carol Burnett trying to hold it together. You see Dad sitting there. They're both ready to just lose it on camera because they don't know what Conway's going to do next.
No, Tim did. Jesse, I swear to God, Tim never did the same show twice. They did what they call a dress and an air show.
And I didn't realize he was not a regular until the 9th season.
No, he was on so much people thought he was a regular. The joke on the Burnett show was, who's not on this week? Steve, Edie, and Conway are not on this week. Oh, good. Okay, we get a break. We get to breathe a little bit. But
now, I love the way you describe your relationship with your father and how you used to talk to each other. You had nicknames that, kind of almost condescending. It's a good word, right? Condescending, but it was affectionate. It was done in an affectionate way.
It was.
Tell the viewers what you used to say to one another when you would be hanging out.
Well, in his house, we'd have an intercom. He'd have an intercom system, so you could be in the bathroom and you could not escape him for more than 20 minutes. So somewhere around dinner time, I'd hear schmuck, come in schmuck, earth to schmuck, or putt. It's dinner time. Or he'd call me Yutz. He did call me Chrissy as a term of endearment. He'd call me Yutz, schmuck face. I would call him Gazoo.
I love that you're so open about this. This is great.
But
was Harvey? Let me ask you, as somebody who's Jewish, was Harvey really Jewish? I mean, what's
interesting, Jesse, is the name Korman is of Russian Jewish. It's a Russian name, Russian Ukraine name, Korman. But my dad used to say, "I can eat like a Jew, I can shop like a Jew, but I'm not getting bar mitzvah anytime soon."
Yeah. But he liked the bagels and the lox with the schmear.
Oh God, Knishes, Gravlox, Kasha,
the classic, right? Hashkavana.
Oh, yeah. It took me a while to figure out why, when people go to Nate and Al's, why people have to repeat everything 3 times, because they have so much gas. They're like the Hindenburg in pants. Now you know about Nate and Al's, right? The famous Jewish deli.
Of course. I've read up all about it.
Oh my God! I'm sitting there one day, and I took my wife and my son, who was 2.5. Now I'll make this short. I am facing Neil Diamond, but Neil's face is back. My wife's back is to him, so he doesn't see me talking to Neil because I'm talking in first name. And now my wife has pancakes in her mouth, and I turned around and I said, "Neil, could you say hi to my wife?" And I was like, "Oh Christ, this isn't going to bode well."
Oh, real with a bubble.
And my wife actually chewed. I said, "Dear, this is Neil Diamond." She lost all the color in her face.
My friend Richie Bennett was his guitar player for 20 years.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, I grew up
at Dennis St. John. I pursued a little bit of music. Dennis St. John was Neil's drummer for a little while. And he played with Roy Orbison.
Well, Neil and his wife, Marcia, lived in Malibu in the colony next to us.
I remember the colony.
I was best friends with Jesse, his son. It's unfortunate that Neil, for those people who don't know, and maybe I shouldn't say it, but I will, Neil does has Parkinson's disease.
My father died of it.
It's awful.
I know Parkinson's better than anybody.
You
know what's horrible about it? Because if you are an artist, like Neil's an artist, my dad was he worked for Fairchild Publications. He was the head of illustration and copyright for 40 years. He used his wit and he used his hands and his eyes to create wonderful sketches for all the fashion designers. And he also was an illustrator at home. He would leave me Christmas, holiday cards and birthday cards. When I look at the back of the card, it would say, "Nosy, why are you looking here? Looking for the price? Sorry, it's not there tonight." I mean, but what was horrible is that he lost the ability to express himself. It basically, people, if you don't know what Parkinson's does, it basically shuts down your motor functions in the most slow and agonizing way possible. It doesn't take a few days, a few weeks, a few months. It takes years and years. And depending on the severity, it can be a horror show to watch unfold.
It is. And if you noticed, Jesse, in his later years, Neil's music got darker and darker, moodier and moodier.
Why do you think that was?
Neil Diamond. This is a dark Neil Diamond. This is moody. This is.
You think he wasn't well for a long time and didn't say anything?
Yeah, because he stopped touring for a while. I talked to Jesse, his son, and they said I started to see his albums were going darker in tone because his music was usually very up, like Gordon Lightfoot. He was always very up. It was very deep. He was a poet. And you just saw this rhythm or this pattern of music. His albums were getting just it was like gestalt, but it was like, oh my God, that's not Neil Diamond. And
that's why, that's why I'm a real believer that every day is a great day.
It is.
You gotta, even in this pandemic, I've been very productive. A lot of people, I've read about a lot of divorces happening. Suddenly you're really married.
Yeah. Well,
we signed that paper about 20 years ago. I've seen you maybe for one day during that time, and then they're suddenly thrown together in a room, and it's like, you couldn't write. I mean, Carol could probably write a comedy sketch that would really, make as the stomach turns seem like dessert.
As Jews turn.
As Jews turn, right?
As the bagels drop.
That's right. As the schmear burns.
Oh my God, my wife, who has been married to me 18 years. She got a full package of a full spectrum. She went to my dad's memorial, and there had to be at least
in 08, right?
In 08, and it had to be. It was traumatic for me enough.
Now you were very close to your father. I had a very close relationship with my dad, and I know to this day when he passed on in 2006. That I have never been the same, and I carry him with me, to this very day.
I feel the same way, Jesse. I'm not the same. I like to think I'm smart. I think I'm wiser. I think I took from him the characteristics that are admirable about him, and I hope to imbue it into who I was, and that makes me more accessible as a human being, certainly on Facebook or with my wife or my family.
For a fan who tunes in to watch this, who wants to know who Harvey Korman really is, and having his son tell them, what would you tell them? How do you describe your father to somebody being introduced to Harvey Korman, the actor and the man, for the first time?
He was a Renaissance man on stage and a peerless father off stage. I would say this honestly, even if he'd not been my father, he still would have been my favorite performer. But how many people can say their favorite performer is their father?
No, I don't know anybody.
And
people are swearing when they talk about their parents.
I tell you, it's in the book, and he found it. I don't know if he found it strange or macabre. I called him once, and I said, because he would call me up at 12 midnight and say, "What did you think of this performance?" I said, "Hey, whenever have you been bad?" I said, "Good, you stay in the will. Keep it up. You can stay in the will long enough." I said, "Thanks."
So let me ask you. All right. So you've witnessed some of the great comedians and entertainers that have ever walked the stages of television and movies. Mel Brooks. Talk about Mel.
Well, I'll tell you. And I'll be honest with you. The paddle scene in Blazing Saddles is the first day. Okay.
The harumph.
The harumph scene is the first scene of the day. Dad had never worked with Mel. Mel had 1 hour conversation with my father at at Warner Brothers. He walked in with his agent, and Mel would say, "We're going to do this, and then we're going to do this, and do this with the pal and whatever." And my dad had memorized the 1,000-Year-Old Man with Carl Reiner. My dad loved Mel, but he's thinking, "There's no way I'm going to keep up with Mel." But see, here's what people don't understand: is Mel is smart. He surrounds himself with people who are stronger than he is at comedy. It elevates everybody. That's why Madeline, my father, and Cloris, and all the people who work with Mel allowed people to shine. But I'll tell you that paddle scene is the first one. And Mel will tell you, if you watch a DVD Spectrum, is he didn't know Harvey could do that on the first take. He did 20 revolutions of that paddle. And he's thinking, oh my God, because Mel kept on missing it. I mean, I don't know if Mel was purposely missing it, but my dad did.
That wasn't written that way. That was
because he didn't know if my dad could do it.
Conversation. That's great.
Because he's thinking, because my dad's 6'3", Mel's short. So my father tried to keep the ball up and away, because if he keeps it low, he's probably going to hit Mel in the head 20 different times.
Which and funny in itself.
But here's what, and not to get over analytical about it, but remember, this is the first time they worked together, Jesse. So they didn't know their comic rhythms were going to mesh. Carl and Mel are as iconic as it gets.
Wow. Chemistry. No, you know what? It's your dad's it's your dad's acting training, formidable acting training, that I think works so well in the kind of comedies that he engaged in, both with Carol and with Mel. It's Agreed. Like he was like the funny straight man. How many people get to be the straight man and be hysterical at the same time? That's not easy to do.
Yeah, and I'll tell you, he the only two things that he would bristle at is he didn't like the caricature of himself as being either a straight man or a sketch comedian. Because my father, he says, I can do it all. I can sing and dance and act. I can do comedy. I can do drama. I mean, Betty Davis and Charles Lawton lauded him after a 1959 Shakespeare program in Santa Monica. Lawton and Betty Davis both said to my father, "You're the next Olivier."
Oh my God! Betty Davis and Charles Lawton.
Charles Lawton and Betty Davis came backstage, and all my dad could say.
How did Harvey react to that?
My dad.
He wasn't famous yet, right? He was just.
He couldn't believe it was me, Betty Davis, and Charles Lawton, and.
At the same time, this happened.
At the same time, this is 1959 or 58.
It's surreal.
And my dad said to Tom.
For viewers that don't know who Charles Lawton was, think of Hunchback of Notre Dame.
Right.
Oh.
Right. Yeah, exactly. So my dad said to Tom Shales, I think over time, she said, "Look, they wanted the next Olivier. I gave him an aging, balding Jew." Someone just asked me why I'm in Vegas. And I said, don't most Jews end up in the desert anyway?
40 years and 40.
I'm not coming for sand. I'm coming for a really good knish. Give me a break here. Hey, God.
Man, I'm telling you.
I think.
Now with your dad and being the amazing father that he was to you, now you're a father yourself. How have you adjusted to parenthood, and what did you learn from your dad in terms of how he treated you?
Listen to what they want to be, not what you want them to be.
Good advice.
Allow them to evolve and grow and evolve on their terms. Don't get them to be what you want to be, so it lessens your insecurities. Oh my God, did I fail my child? I can accelerate the maturation process with my son, but who would I be serving? Me.
Well, that's the thing. A lot of parents make that mistake, and they think of themselves and what will make the situation better for them than always putting their child's needs first.
Right. So I think that was the key with my mother and my father, Jesse, is that they had to let my maturation process play out. But here's the difference: is when I grew up, there was only 3 channels and PBS. There wasn't this. The form of media wasn't as salacious.
We're overwhelmed now. We have more channels than I can carry.
Right.
And how many of them do you actually watch? How many of those channels do you actually watch? I know I sit there going, beep, 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 and I find one thing I want to watch. It's a miracle, especially now during this pandemic.
Well, the thing is, because of my learning disability, now remember, I had a golf tournament for 22 years with my father. So I've been in the public eye for 48 years.
Wow.
So this is not normal. So I've shielded my son from this as much as possible. I mean, he has been in articles with me. He has had pictures with me, but I have guarded him to the point. Now he has come to me and said, fairly, I want to try acting.
And
said, okay.
do you do it? Acting shaped you. Didn't it give you a chance to accelerate your ability to adjust? Because acting forces you to listen, acting forces you to watch, acting forces you to speak on cue. You can't let any of these deficiencies get in the way when you're on that stage.
Right, and that's what my point is that if anything that Scott learned from it is he learned compromise, dealing with people who will not have your skill set or your pedigree. You'll have to learn about patience. You'll have to learn about how to retrieve the information. You'll have to learn about timing. You'll have to learn about stage direction. But don't do it because your grandfather is Harvey Korman. Do it because it brings something out in you, Scott, that elevates you to a different level and makes you feel complete as a human being. If you do it for me, you're not doing it for the right reason.
I think Harvey taught you well, Chris. Very nice.
I'll tell you, not in a million years could I think I could do what my father did. With his training, I would not.
You're well adjusted about it. You're not competing with the shadow and legend of your father. You have become your own person and are at peace with it, which is really nice to see because it's not always that. That's not always the case. As I'm gonna say we're running towards the end of the show, so I don't want to leave the show without you talking about some of these sketches. And I would love you to pick 3 sketches that your dad did on Carol that you think are like the funniest thing ever, and to give the viewer, because I'm going to have, like the sketches that you sent us, I want to have them run in between your commentary.
Okay.
So tell us a little bit about each one and why you find it funny and what the viewer can, especially if a lot of new viewers are going to watch this who've never seen the Carol Burnett show, and it's going to be a revelation for them.
Well, I'll start with the one that everybody would ask me about is the dentist. For only the reason.
With Tim Conway.
Right. The first show, you have to remember, they did 2 shows a night. Tim did not take the Novocaine and numb himself all over his body the first show. He only went as far as the leg. So the second show, Tim numbed his leg, his arm, his face, his head. So my dad was not expecting that because the first time he does it, it runs maybe 7.5, 8 minutes. The second one ran like 17 minutes because Tim numbed everything but his what. So my dad,
and that was again one of those sketches where you see Harvey trying to keep it all together.
So to distract himself, he put a nail in his hand. So he would crunch down on the nail to distract himself from laughing. Because
what better way to inflict pain than have some rope hanging around?
And that one is because it was the first time they had worked together. They had never worked together.
That was their first sketch ever?
Yes.
Wow.
Because Tim had brought in material that he had done. Now, Tim had been on Danny Kaye, which my dad was a regular on Danny Kaye for 4 years. The Wet with the Wind sketch is probably the most prolific for many reasons. A, Carol nor my father knew what they were going to do until Thursday when they got into the costume. Because you have to remember, Price is Right occupied stage 33 for most of the week. So not until Carol gets into the curtain rods does she really understand what Starlet is all about. My father the whole week struggled with Rat Butler.
I'm going to interrupt and say, ladies and gentlemen, you must. Where can they? They can go on YouTube, right? And they can.
Yeah.
This is the name of this episode is
Wet with the Wind.
Wet with the Wind. You must watch this. It is as funny today as it was. There's that one scene. Where'd you get that dress, Scott? Oh, it was something I saw in the window, and I couldn't resist.
It is, and what's amazing is the 2 writers, Rick Hawkins and Liz Sage,
it is amazing.
Were pages at NBC when they submitted that to Joe Hamilton.
Oh my God.
And they got hired based on that spec script because Rick Hawkins wrote his sabbatical. He wrote his term paper on the Gone with the Wind.
Wow.
So when my dad got into the Rhett Butler outfit, he said, I didn't know how to walk. I didn't know what to do with, because Jesse, it would have been very easy to do an homage of Clark Gable doing Rhett Butler. It has to be Harvey Korman doing the Rhett Butler, because the trap is you want to do the whole lemon face, not Scarlett, not right now, Scarlett. I'm pooped.
No, I love the scene. I love the scene where he's about to go. Frankly, Scarlett, I don't.
Oh my God, the one that another one they should check out. There's a famous Broadway actress named Pat Carroll, and she and Tim are visiting my dad, and they're business partners. And Tim's character had an injection, and he ends up acting like a dog. Now, the first show, Pat Carroll says, "Okay, let's be very disciplined. We're professionals here." Okay, first thing Tim does, he goes by the book. The second show, he's now full on dog.
It's amazing. Those two shows, like Saturday Night Live, gives you a chance to work the sketch out the first time really quickly.
Yeah, well, and then Pat Carroll is now laughing. She's lectured them the first time about we're all professional actors. Can we not break up? The second show, she loses it and says, "I gotta leave." And she peed in her pants. She left the stage and never came back.
They edited that out, I guess.
Because Tim got under my dad's arm. He started to sniff my dad's hair. My dad's mustache came off. Now, mind you, you're under hot lights. The most important thing about wearing makeup, or you use that stickum gum for mustaches.
Right.
My dad said, "You know what? The good thing about the most important thing about doing sketch comedy is don't drink vodka the night before, because you sweat your ever living ass off, because he could never keep his mustaches on, because they always drink. If you drink vodka or alcohol,
sweating right under your nose."
Right. So my dad could never keep a mustache or a beard on his face ever.
I have to wrap this up, Chris, but okay. I would like you to just sort of, to the viewers, give them a couple of parting words about your dad. Something like a homage. Just a couple of sentences to sort of sum it all up. It was great talking to you today, man.
It was. I'll do your show anytime, Jesse. You're a dear friend for life. He truly was. He was my Joe DiMaggio. He was my Dean Martin. He was my idol, and I loved him more than anything in my life. And I hope I have honored his name, being his son. I certainly hope that. I hope I'm as good a father to my son as I was to my dad as a son. I hope I am. He truly was the greatest thing in the world to me. I miss him dearly. I hope more people who read the book get a sense that he.
Where can they get the book, Chris? Where can they buy the book?
They can either buy it on eBay. They can go to Walmart. They can go to Barnes & Noble, or they can go to bearmanorpress.com, and they can buy in hardcover or softcover.
So tell everybody the title again, so they know.
Oh my God, it's Harvey Korman's son.
So if they type in Christopher Korman on their search engine, it'll pop up.
Yes.
All right. Christopher Korman, the son of legendary Harvey Korman, from Carol Burnett, from Mel Brooks' Blazing Saddles and High Anxiety. It was an amazing, amazing episode. It was a wonderful conversation. Thank you for letting me in your life. Thank you for sharing your legendary dad with all of us. And I hope you'll come back again soon.
Anytime you want, Jesse. Anytime.
All right,
you're
man, you got it.
My friend, pal.
All right, Chris.
I love you, pal.
All right, man. Bye-bye.